So have you ever finished a show and gone back to season 1 and realised just how different everything is? I did this after finishing It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's fantastic, by the way. And I didn't quite realise how much the show had changed over the years. It's more than just the actors getting older too, the characters' whole personalities changed. The type of plot points were different, and the way the show literally looked was different, in subtle ways that changed the vibe completely. Don't get me wrong, enough things were similar, it's definitely the same show, but different in enough ways where it feels slightly off. Like we're watching the same show, but from a mirror dimension or something. I began to wonder if it was just like this for Always Sunny, but when I looked at the shows, I realised most other shows had this same thing happen. I know, it's crazy. TV shows change over time. We're the first people to discover this phenomenon. Now, the first and most obvious reason to why a show feels different is that it literally looks different. You know, when most shows start, they have the budget of 2 sticks and a rock to make the first season.
And we had to share the rock.
Since studio executives don't have much faith in new projects, and that means these shows have to reuse the same sets and limit themselves with how far they can take certain plot lines. Most sitcoms get away with this in their early years, since they can mostly just film in some random street corner without too much hassle. Shows like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Trailer Park Boys do this a lot. Trailer Park Boys was a funny one since the first few seasons actually were filmed in a real trailer park. They obviously didn't have enough budget to build a set yet. And you could just see people walking around in the background just confused at what the hell's going on. Like if you showed this clip to some random guy and told him it was a YouTube skit, he'd believe you. That's the thing though, they really do feel like the type of thing you and your mates would film for a laugh, just with a bit more effort put into it. These shows don't have big extravagant plots with recurring characters and crazy plot lines while they go to the fucking Super Bowl yet. They're not doing multi-episode arcs where they go to another country. It's just a group of people shouting over each other at a cafe or in a bar. In a way, they had to be more creative with what they had. Take season 1 of It's Always Sunny, for example. Pretty much all of the first season's episodes are fairly authentic and are just more exaggerated forms of reality. They're pretty much all about the characters trying to make more money for their bar or them just being a bunch of arseholes to each other. Like when Charlie pretends to get cancer so we can get pity from the waitress. Jesus Christ. I know that's kind of what the show is now, but instead of using the bar just as a setup and focusing on the crazy scenarios, season 1 really puts an emphasis on the gang literally trying to make money for their bar. They didn't have that Danny DeVito money yet, both in the show and in real life. You see this in Trailer Park Boys as well. When that show was in full swing, the boys would spend an entire season setting up some big drug operation or scheme. But in season 1, it's just them living their life in the park. Yeah, there's a running gag of Ricky trying to get his drug operation running again, but it's nothing more than just a couple of plants. It's simple things like Julian get a thug out of the park, the boys struggling to take care of an old lady's dog, and Ricky desperately trying to get back with his ex Lucy. Because these shows didn't have the budget to go wild yet, they had to keep things real, they had to keep things authentic. Like the type of stories you'd hear from your mates after a couple of pints at the pub. With many of these shows being as old as they are, Always Sunny literally came up the year I was born, it means that the first few seasons are all in standard definition and couldn't hit HD for a while. And you know what? I'm gonna say it. TV has been worse ever since. So many TV shows lost their vibes and atmosphere when this happened, and to me, the show that was possibly hit the hardest is Doctor Who. The first couple of seasons of the revival, especially season 1, has this dark and mysterious atmosphere with everything cloaked in shadows. Standard definition added to this atmosphere even more, as it made everything that much harder to see, giving a show about exploring time and the most foreign parts of space an alien feel. I mean, all I need to show is the comparison between the TARDISes, and that should really say it all. Standard definition making things look slightly off really makes things look otherworldly, even in animation. I mean, look at the Bikini Bottom in season 1 of SpongeBob to now. You can't tell me these are the same place. You can't. Like I said before, the early seasons of sitcoms have this really basic feel, which really benefited them. I think Trailer Park Boys benefited the most since it was filmed as a mockumentary. Think The Office, but for redneck Canadian stoners.
What are you talking about?
I mean, it's literally about a bunch of scheming lowlives, one of them living in a busted old car doing the most reprehensible shit. We're talking about a show where one of the main characters smokes cigarette butts off the floor, thinks starring in an adult film will get him back with his ex, and accidentally shoots himself in the butt with his own handgun.
I need medical attention!
I mean, this whole show was about shittiness. So, standard definition, making an already low budget show look even worse. Perfect.
Looks pretty good.
What's in high def, Ricky? Look how much clearer it is.
Now, a lot of what I said about Trailer Park Boys also applies to It's Always Sunny. It wasn't quite as low budget as Trailer Park Boys was, but the show benefited from the low quality all the same. While not shitty in the more literal, kind of disgusting term, the Always Sunny gang are deplorable people, and the standard definition combined with the early season lighting, which, can we talk about that for a second? This is a major aspect that makes early Always Sunny specifically feel different to how it is later on. In the earlier seasons, the bar is really dark, with most of the lighting coming from neon signs dotted around the walls, meaning that most of the characters are all caked in shadows, and every scene in the bar, and subtly reminds the audience that this is a black comedy. Not the bright and clean type of comedy that you'd find in something like The Office. This subtle reminder was lost later on when the bar got the brighter, more sterile lighting that most sitcoms have. So this dark and grimy atmosphere, combined with the poor camera quality, created a vibe in the early seasons that was unmatched. Anyway, that has been my TED Talk. Now the next big reason to why season 1 of a show feels different is that the characters are wildly different to what they later become. For better or for worse. It's like they got the building blocks of what the characters would turn into, or the foundations, or the framework, or another construction metaphor.
I am a building.
Usually characters change for a few different reasons. It can be that they aren't too sure what to do with certain characters, starting off with a few characteristics and then building on them as seasons go by, resulting in quite a natural evolution, but also leading to a point that the character later on is almost unrecognisable to how they were to begin with. Charlie in Always Sunny in Philadelphia is the perfect example of this. When you think of Charlie now, you think of a pretty disgusting guy who in many ways was the gang's punching bag and is not the smartest guy in the world. He's not an idiot, he's shown at several points that he's actually very skilled in specific areas, like how he's an excellent pianist.
A day, man, that's it!
Hey, man.
Can create an entire play from scratch and can single-handedly juggle managing the gang's sleazy antics and a health inspection at the same time. Then he's also the same guy who offs glue when he's paint. I think the best way to describe Charlie's character now is that he's completely illiterate, with all of his writings being either absolute gibberish or doodles, but can also speak fluent Gaelic. Anyways, going back to season 1, he's completely unrecognisable. Most of his defining character traits, namely his stupidity, haven't really come about yet, and don't really show up until season 2. He strangely plays a straight man in many of the episodes, with him sarcastically commenting on the other guys' stupidity, and having storylines that won't really happen with him nowadays. Like the episode where someone he used to date in high school contacts him that they have a kid and he has to take care of him. This isn't really a plotline that would happen with him nowadays, and is actually something that would happen with either Dennis or Mac. Probably Dennis. Now, he's not a completely different character. There are bits and pieces of Charlie's character that would shine through later, like the hints of Charlie getting essayed when he was younger, and more importantly, his obsession with the waitress. It seemed as the seasons went on, they picked and chose what characteristics of Charlie they'd focus on and what they'd get rid of, all give to different characters, letting everybody stand out from each other more. This led to the Charlie that we know and love today, which I think is to the show and everyone's benefit. This, though, is the best case scenario, with the character evolving and getting better as the show went on. But the other side of the coin is what happened to many of the characters in Trailer Park Boys, especially after it was brought back by Netflix and lost its main writer and director, Mike Clattenburg. The character Julian was hit the hardest though. In season 1, Julian is shown to be a criminal, yes, but he's one of the heart and true love for his community and his friends. The first episode of the show showcases his best, starting off with him and his loose cannon of a friend Ricky leaving prison. Julian says he's completely done with Ricky's shit and never wants to see him again, but by the end of the episode, when Ricky truly has nowhere else to go, he gives Ricky some food and some vodka. Yeah, I told you this show had a layer of shittiness.
Dog shit.
And lets him sleep in his car, with him eventually giving it to Ricky in the next episode. Julian is also shown to be a guardian of sorts to the people of the park, with people looking to him for advice and for help. In the first episode, he defends the park from this absolute tool of a thug, which leads to this absolute goldmine of a clip.
And I want my tapes replaced because those were the creme de la creme.
He's also the one that pretty much half the entire park goes to when they have a problem, and he's the one that keeps Randy and Leahy's play rehearsal a secret.
I'm not Mr. Lee.
Now, he's not an angel, he's still a criminal and does plenty of shady scheming, but that's not all he is. He has a heart, and he truly does care and look out for those around him, even when he's trying to earn a quick buck. Well, that's what he was, because in the Netflix era, all that's gone. He's become a caricature of his former self. Whereas before, he would actively look out for his community while trying to earn a living, now all he cares about is money. He manipulates the people around him so they can help with his schemes, and when they don't pan out, he blames them for being idiots. At the start of one of the Netflix seasons, it's explained that he moved away to work on an oil rig for a year and that nobody's seen him. The boys found out though that he's been lying the whole time and has been living in a shipping container. He just didn't want to deal with anyone's shit anymore. This is more than out of character, this is a blatant insult to how he was in the original run of the show. The guy who gave the trailer he planned to sell to an old couple that got evicted, the guy who brought Bubbles a new shed after his old one burnt down, how the guy who took the blame so his friend wouldn't get arrested would not abandon his friends to go live in a shipping container because he was done with their shit. What started out as a character who wanted to make money and move up in the world but really cared about and loved his community just became a money-loving scumbag. He became a caricature of what he once was. Whereas Always Sunny built upon the initial foundations of Charlie to build him into becoming a funnier and more interesting character, Julian regressed in Trailer Park Boys and lost his complexity and his dimension. Whereas Charlie was built up Julian was torn down, leaving just the foundations. Another third and much more personal reason to why a show's first season hits different is that as a viewer, it feels like you're watching something much more personal and niche. The show hasn't found its footing yet and is slowly introducing you to the format of each episode and the characters. It's a sort of melting pot of the first few points, along with the passion and drive that people have when creating something brand new. They don't have the budget to afford famous actors yet, or to go all out on their crazy ideas, so they have to work around that in any way they can, out of sheer drive. It feels personal. You can slowly see the writers figuring out what works and what doesn't in each episode. You can see them experiment with things more, as they haven't quite built up a status quo or set expectations for the audience yet. Even as a show as legendary and as revered as It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the first season feels niche. It feels like it was filmed in a dingy bar with an old camera that you used to make home movies with. It feels like I haven't quite figured out each character yet and are just making it up as they go along. It feels like the show itself is growing with its audience. It's why, even though later on these shows add celebrities and get more bombastic with their ideas, season 1 is truly magical. Now, I'm not saying that these shows peak at the start. It definitely gets better and hits its stride later on. But what I am saying is, once you're done finishing that last episode, go back to the very first episode of season 1. But what I am saying is that once you've finished the show and you've hit the credits of the last episode, go back to the very first episode of season 1. Sit and appreciate where it all began. Because season 1 of a show truly hits different. Thank you for watching.